Hello again, my little conscripts, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, we shall be casting our ever-critical eye over another Imperial Guard 10th edition Codex datasheet. This time, we will be looking at one of the lightest armoured vehicles that you can include in your army list. It is the venerable and ever useful Scout Sentinel. This two-legged Scout Walker has been a staple of many Guard armies over many editions. And I am happy to get you hyped and to say that in the new Codex, in the new edition, it still does a good job. And you are going to find a home for these things in many of your competitive lists. A bold statement to be sure, and I'm going to back it up. So without further ado, let's not mess about. Let's mount up, walk out, dive right into this thing. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty detail, I just want to say that this video is going to be solely focused on the Scout Sentinels. Armored Sentinels will be covered in a separate video, and the reason for that is even though these units look very similar, they do completely different things on the battlefield, and so each one deserves its own deep dive. So don't worry if you're like, Mordian, what's your opinion on Armored Sentinels? It's coming soon. With that said, let's get into the video proper, and as is tradition, let us begin with a cheeky gander at the Scout Sentinels stat line. First up, we've got that movement of 10 inches. Now, normally when I see a vehicle with a 10-inch movement, I say something on the lines of, that's good, it can keep up with the rest of the Guard motor pool. With the Scout Sentinels, it's a little bit different, because you don't just want to look at the 10-inch movement here, you also want to look at, I know, skipping ahead, looking at the abilities already, I know, but this is just the nature of this unit, it's a bit interesting, it's a bit different. You want to be looking at its scout move as well. So as a Scout Sentinel, so obviously it's going to have a scout move, which is good, and it scouts 9 inches. Now that is, off the top of my head, the largest scout move that we have in the Guard Codex. So turn 1, really, you don't want to be thinking of the thing as having a 10-inch move. You want to be thinking it as having a 19-inch move. Maybe even a 22-inch move if you take into account something like move. This actually means that rather than keeping up with the rest of the Guard motor pool, you will tend to find that your Scout Sentinels are leading the way. They are one of the first things that's going to be getting into the fight, into the fray, with its very, very good maneuverability. Remember, guys, that scout moves can be used both offensively and defensively. So if you've got a Sentinel and you think, I really want to go out there, get that objective, or put some early pressure on my opponent, then you can use your scout move, have your Sentinels out in the open. If you get turn 1, great, go forward 9 inches, then go 10 inches, boom, start getting angles on people. But if you don't get that turn 1, you can scout move maybe sideways or in a different direction behind an L-shaped ruin, taking advantage of the dense boards that we have. So this is really good combining these two movements because, like I said, it could be used to be really aggressive or it could be used to be very defensive, but either way, your Scout Sentinels has got very, very good maneuverability. And remember, movement wins games. Moving on from the movement, because I have been wittering on about it far too long, let's get into the defensive stat line. Scout Sentinels are T7 with a 3+ save and 7 wounds. This is a decent defensive profile, but it is not a particularly strong one. T7 does mean that you will be wounded on 5s against a lot of bolter and bolter equivalent firepower, and that means the Scout Sentinel isn't totally immune to incidental weapons. More often than I can count, I have had a Sentinel with maybe 2 or 3 wounds remaining fairly consistently just whittled away from a burst of bolter fire from a unit Marines or something equivalent. So it's okay, but don't expect it to stride forward with small arms pinging off its armored hide. No. This is the Scout Sentinel. 7 wounds is a nice breakpoint though. It means that it always takes 1 extra wound to really kill you. Someone fires a bunch of 2 damage stuff at you, it's going to take 4 shots, not 3. Someone fires a bunch of 3 damage stuff at you, it's going to take 3 shots, not 2. So I do, whilst I'm not overly impressed by the T73 Plus, I do really like the 7 wounds, and I do find that to be an interesting breakpoint. Overall, though, the Scout Sentinel is not particularly durable. Do not expect it to hold up against any amount of concentrated firepower, and even spare firepower will probably be able to finish it off. We've then got a leadership of 7 and an objective control of 2, which are completely standard issue for A, a guard unit, and B, a vehicle of this size. With the stat line covered, now let's get into the offensive capabilities of the thing. Let's get into the weapons and war gear. Each Scout Sentinel comes equipped with a multi-laser and a close combat weapon. Both of those are utterly trash. Like, I think this might be one of the worst starting loadouts in the whole codex. The multi-laser, for example, fires a whopping 4 strength 6 AP0 damage one-shots. There is never any reason to take the multi-laser. It is quite possibly the worst heavy / support weapon in the entire game. Many guard players, including myself, have hypothesized and theorized and played around with how you can make the multi-laser better, but GW apparently does not care. So, a bit like when we looked at the Chimera, don't ever take the multi-laser. So if the multi-laser is so trash, then what should we take instead? Well, fortunately, the Scout Sentinel has a lot of different options. You can have an autocannon, a heavy flamer, a las cannon, a missile launcher, and a plasma cannon. And each one of these options is going to drastically change what you can expect from your Scout Sentinel. Going with the autocannon, for example, you're going to have a decently long-ranged, actually very impressively long-range, 48-inch range, take-all-comers weapon. It's going to have 2 shots, so not the highest rate of fire, but not the lowest rate of fire. Ballistical 4+, of course, but then we've got orders, which can make it a 3+. Strength 9, AP-1, damage 3. I really do like the autocannon. It's only really let down by the fact it's only AP-1, so if your opponent is in cover, it's going to struggle to plink the wounds through. But in detachments like Siege, in combination with things like Hellhounds, or being able to boost the AP of this from various sources like stratagems and combined arms, or having an exterminator, the AP-1 really isn't so bad. And whilst this was with the index, it very much was a transferable experience to the codex. I have run entire armies of autocannons, and a lot of that was based around spamming Sentinels autocannons, and they turned out to be pretty good. So the autocannon is not a bad pick, presuming there are other things in your list that can support the autocannon. After that, we've got the heavy flamer. This completely changes, utterly changes how you're going to use this unit. There was a time, not that long ago, just last edition in fact, when the heavy flamer was actually considered the go-to weapon for Scout Sentinels. Because even though it's got a short range, because you've got Scout plus good movement, short range was never really a problem. It had D6 shots with Strength 5, AP-1, damage 1, but it ignores cover and it's torrent. So the AP-1 isn't so bad because you're ignoring cover. It doesn't need any support, and the torrent means that it automatically hits. You don't have to roll for it. This can be really good on Scout Sentinels who maybe you don't really want to mess around with, like an order for a Scout Sentinel. It's like one little unit. You want that order to maybe go on like a battle tank, like a Rogal Dawn or Lemur or something. So just don't worry about it hitting. Just give it the heavy flamer. Up until recently, I wouldn't have rated the heavy flamer. I'm telling you, up until maybe a week ago of time of recording this video, I would have said not worth it. I think it's making a comeback. The reason for that, the meta's changing. For the first couple of years of 10th edition, we were a vehicles and monster meta. It was all vehicles, all monsters, all the way. Elite infantry is making a comeback. A lot of that elite infantry is things like Eldar or Eldar equivalent. Relatively fragile. Having a heavy flamer now makes a lot more sense than it did essentially 6 months ago. Having said all that, our next weapon, the las cannon, is a personal favourite of mine. At the end of the day, it's a las cannon. It fires a big anti-tank shot with the potential to do big damage. It has good strength, it has good AP, it's good damage, and even though it's only got one shot, I have found consistently in 10th edition that if in doubt, go big or go home. And the last cannon is the biggest gun you're going to find on this list. If you know you are going to be facing a lot of elite infantry, if you know a lot of that infantry is going to be relatively fragile, like Eldar equivalent stuff, I'd say probably go heavy flamer. But if you're not sure what you're going to face, like in a tournament where each game could be a different faction, and those factions are going to be wildly different, I would say go for the last cannon. It's still the go-to take all comers option. The next two options we've got are kind of interesting. I never seem to find a reason to take these weapons, but on paper they have great potential. Maybe I should be a bit more open-minded towards them. First one is the missile launcher. Now, if you've ever heard me talk about missile launchers before, I have ruthlessly and utterly lambasted them. I think they're terrible. They are one step above the multi-laser. Except on Sentinels. I don't know if it's a typo, but for some reason the Sentinel missile launcher has got the heavy keyword. And you might think that's not such a big deal if you go and look at heavy weapon squads. The missile launcher there has a heavy keyword. But the difference is that Sentinels are a vehicle, and most vehicles don't have heavy keyword weapons anymore. Not all, but many don't have it. And it hits on a 4+ to start. So this means that a Sentinel which stays still and has the take aim order can hit on 2s with its missile launcher, because you can stack heavy and the take aim order, because one is +1 to your dice roll, the other is +1 to your ballistic skill characteristic. In theory, that's very interesting. In theory, that's got a lot of potential. The problem, I think, is the fact that it's the missile launcher. You can fire D6 bolter rounds at someone, woo with blast, or you can fire a kind of crappy anti-tank shot. I think the heavy is misleading. I think it is like a siren song to try and encourage you to try the missile launcher out. I'm just not convinced by it. The same thing cannot be said for the plasma cannon. I love plasma cannons. I put them on every single Russ, and a lot of people think I'm mad and say go down the multi-melter route, Mordian. I've tried multi-melters. No. I'm all about team plasma cannon now, and that does transfer onto Sentinels as well. A bit like how the heavy flamer has become a lot more relevant, I feel like the plasma cannon has become a lot more relevant as well, because the plasma cannon is kind of like the halfway house between the lance cannon and the heavy flamer. It has a decent rate of fire because it is D3 shots but with blast. So even against a basic squad, you're looking at D3 +1. And against a lot of units, you're probably looking at D3 +2 shots. That gives it almost as many average shots as a heavy flamer. And then it's also got the good AP. And then, especially if you're supercharging it, it has got the strength and the damage to really be slung into anything. Marine equivalent infantry, you're going to wound on 2s, probably going to 1-pop them with the damage 2. Eldar and stuff obviously will easily be dealt with as well with that same profile. But then also against vehicles, you're wounding them on 5s, which kind of means it's sort of encroaching on the autocannons territory as well. The only reason I don't say the plasma cannon is the go-to on Sentinel is because I haven't tried it yet. But on paper, it holds up. On paper, Sentinel with plasma cannon, the current meta, elite infantry meta, is the weapon of choice. Now, the good news, if you are a new player and you think that all of these weapons sound amazing and you don't know which one to pick, the current Sentinel kit is push fit on the weapons. That means you don't have to glue the weapons on. You can literally push the weapon onto the little, what do you call it, like nub, and it will stay there. And so what happens is if you just don't glue the weapons on, you can swap out between games. So if you're a new player, what I would suggest is avoid the multi-laser because it is trash. All of the other ones, play around with them. Try a different one each game. because you get all of them in the kit. You don't have to commit to each one. You don't have to glue them on. And that way you'll find the weapon that works best in your playstyle. The Sentinel does have two other weapons. We've got the Sentinel Chainsaw and we've got the Hunter Killer Missile. It's important to note that these are not weapons you have to choose between. You can take both. And that these are not weapons you have to swap something else out. You don't have to like swap the multi-laser out or anything. These are just freebies to add on to the vehicle, and so you should always be taking them. The Sentinel Chainsaw actually gives you something to do in close combat, although don't expect much, it's just a little tickle. But it's still way better than the combat weapon. The Hunter Killer Missile, on the other hand, is very good. A lot of people poo-poo them because they're one shot, literally. You can only shoot them once per battle, and they only hit on 4s. But I find, especially with a lot of traditional guard vehicles, if you're taking a lot of Sentinels and Russes and then also Chimeras, you might have like 10 to 12 Hunter Killer Missiles in your army. And that's when their firepower can be taken into account. So one Hunter Killer Missile, not a threat, but hell, it's free. Half a dozen to a dozen Hunter Killer Missiles will actually produce results. But that just about covers all the weapons and war gear. Last stop is the abilities. We've already covered the Scout's 9-inch ability, so we'll focus on Daring Recon. At the start of your shooting phase, select one enemy unit within 18 inches of and visible to this unit. Until the end of the phase, each time a friendly Astra Militarum model makes an attack that targets that unit, reroll a hit roll of 1. This is a straight up force multiplier, and it's great. There's nothing bad about this ability. It's something that will always be useful, being able to just tag an enemy unit with the Daring Recon at the beginning of the shooting phase, and then when everyone else piles onto that enemy unit, they're all getting reroll 1s. It's a fantastic force multiplier, and it's even got a long enough range. That 18-inch range means that pretty much if you want to tag something and light it up, you will be able to, and that will support you in the rest of your shooting phase. The only thing to remember is make sure you're doing this at the beginning of the shooting phase, because if you get halfway through, you might miss out on a bunch of reroll 1s to hit. Quick side note, this ability has been nerfed from the index. It used to help you with indirect fire weapons. That bit has been removed from the ability. If you're a new player, you don't need to worry about that. But if you're a veteran that's been playing the guard since the index, you want to be aware of that, because it's a small change that a lot of people have missed. But speaking of changes, we need to get to the big one. We need to address the elephant in the room. And that is the number of Scout Sentinels you can have in a squad. For 30 years, probably, since like 2nd edition, you could take Scout Sentinels in units of 1 to 3. Like kilocans for orcs. Now, you can only get 1 to 2 Scout Sentinels. I have no idea why GW made this change. It is completely nonsensical. It's not popular in any way, shape, or form. And I'm just confused. Because Sentinels were always taken as either 1s or 3s. You took 3 Scout Sentinels because that came to about the price of like a main battle tank. And whilst maybe the firepower wasn't quite as good as a main battle tank, but don't turn your nose up at 3 las cannons and 300 killer missiles, you had a bit more close combat capability, you had a lot more wounds, and you also were a bit more maneuverable, or a lot more maneuverable with your Scout 9 inches, so you could potentially deliver some early blows with some good AT punch. Or you took them in 1s. The reason you took them in 1s is because you took one lone Scout Sentinel that could scout forward, maybe mark something up with Daring Recon, or, and this is where I think the tactic is now, what makes them still viable. So this is what makes them really good now. Early secondary game. You get engaged on fronts, turn 1. You get extend battle line, turn 1. Or establish locus. Or secure no man's land. Now you could go out there with a big 20-man blob of guardsmen or squad of Catachans or something like that and get those objective points. But you're throwing out there 100 to a nearly 200 point unit, especially if there's a command squad attached to it. Scout Sentinels can go out there and do it for 55 points at the time of recording. In fact, they are the cheapest scout unit that we have. So before this change of unit composition and before recent points changes, the go-to cheeky early secondary game unit was a unit of Catachans. Now it is the Scout Sentinels. But you never, ever, ever, ever saw anyone taking them in 2s. Because why would you? 2s it's too expensive to do secondary games efficiently, and it's not enough firepower to do killing game effectively. So essentially, you're never going to see people take Scout Sentinels in 2s unless they're running some sort of like meme list where they're like maxing out on all the Sentinels they possibly can do. And if you're a new player, I highly recommend that you don't take Scout Sentinels in squadrons of 2. I think your best bet, and what makes the Scout Sentinel nearly an auto include, I think every single list can benefit from this, is taking one of them in your list, 55 points, early secondary game. And if you don't get one of those objectives early on, then it's totally okay, because it's still going to be run around with a lance cannon or an autocannon or a plasma cannon, so it can still provide a little bit of extra fire support. Of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What is your favorite weapon for your Scout Sentinels, and do you tend to run them in these small tactical sort of objective doing units, or have you had some success with running them in pairs? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button. It really does support the channel and boost the video with the YouTube algorithm. And if that's not a good enough reason to like it, remember, every single time you watch a Mordian Glory video and you don't like it, the Eldar are allowed to exist as a faction for one more day. So do your part, squat the Xenos, and like the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.